What's happening? This is my review of the Audio-Technica at-lp120 USB direct drive turntable. I'm going to be talking about this in terms of DJing. There are plenty of videos out there on this deck. A lot of them I think are geared towards audiophiles, not so much about with DJs. So that's really what I'm going to be discussing. The other thing too, this isn't an unboxing or anything like that. I'm not running down a list of the features. I'm going to give you my impressions after long-term use. Now I've had these particular decks for probably about 5 years. I've gotten some pretty consistent use over those years. I'd say conservatively, I put probably 1,000 or so hours on these decks, and so I know a little bit of what they're about. So I'll kind of give you some of my my insights after having used them for that time. So I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you I would recommend these for somebody to use for DJing in a home setup. I'm not necessarily talking about a club install or anything like that, but certainly if you're have DJ'd before and you're used to turntables and whatever reason you had your 1200 and sold them, you're looking to get back into it, and for whatever reason can't get Technics, then I would recommend these. If you're new looking to get into turntables, maybe you're coming from CDJs or controller and want to try a turntable, and again, for whatever reason you can't get Technics, certainly I think these would totally suit you. Also, the other thing is, I say this, these aren't my only turntables. I own 2 pairs of Technics 1200s. I have a pair of Mark IIs and a pair of Mark Vs. Of course, if you can get Technics, go for it. But again, it might be, just they're not available in your area, or price or anything like that. I mean, if you wanted a brand new deck, if you're looking at brand new Technics, I mean, the GRs are like $1,700 a piece now. And if you're even, from Mark IIs or whatever, there's still some new ones, and those things are at least, 1,000 or something like that. A pair, whereas you're talking about these right now, I know you can get them for under $250 for one deck, and I paid, I think, like $200 a deck when I got these 5 years ago. These are OEM decks, meaning original equipment manufacturer. They're made by a company called Handpin Electron, and a lot of people I hear saying online and stuff, calling these super OEMs. There's a little bit of a difference, and where that comes from is the amount of torque. When you're calling something a super OEM, those are based off of the handpin model. It's the DJ 5500, and that has like 4.5 kilograms of force per centimeter. So like the kind of decks that you would find made with that would be like the Pioneer PLX 1000, the Stanton ST150. Audio-Technica does the AT-LP 1240. I think the Reloop RP 7000, and then probably some other European rebrands. I don't know about that. This has 1.6 kilograms of force, and so it would be on par with stuff like the Newmark, the TT 250 USB that just came out, the Reloop RP 4000, I think the Stanton T92, maybe there are a couple others the Pioneer, the PLX 500, that also is kind of based off of this. But again, when you're comparing it to those other decks, they're all the same thing, and this is coming in, I think lower than all of those, with the exception maybe of the Newmark. Anyway, so yeah, they have a little bit of lower torque compared to Techs. The sustained torque is a little bit lower. The starting torque is a little bit lower, but I think it's certainly something totally usable. If you're used to Technics, I mean, that's what you're used to using turntables, and you're using Technics, you'll get used to the lower torque, pretty quickly. It's totally usable. If you have any problems kind of with some drag, I would recommend, maybe putting a plastic mat under your slip mat if you don't have real slippy mats. The other thing you can do, which is an old trick, is to spray furniture polish. Take your platter off and spray it down with furniture polish and buff it out, and that'll help also. But you're not going to have any issues with it. You'll be able to back cue. You'll be able to scratch and to juggle. As far as that, I'm not going to show you any of that because my scratching, I'm not a turntablist by any means, and it's mediocre at best, but there's some other pretty good turntablism videos already out there. So one of them is actually by the Audio-Technica Iberian channel, so they've got a good one. And then also DJ Oddyssey has a few good scratch videos up using these decks, and then also MusicManC does a side-by-side comparison with the 120 versus a 1200, and I'll go ahead and I'll put the links to those videos down in the description here. Here's another thing too, just I want to tell you, as far as if you're considering these, versus, I actually prefer a lower torque deck than the high torque ones, and the reason being, if you're going to be using something that 4.5 or 5 kilograms of force, and you get used to that, then you go to play a gig, and they're providing turntables like dollars to donuts. It's going to be a 1200, so you're actually going down in torque. So you'd go from like almost half, or more than half. And I think you're going to get used to that higher torque, and it's going to potentially mess you up. But if you're using a lower torque deck, and then you move up to a Technics that has a higher sustained torque, it's going to be a lot easier for you to plan those to adjust to it. The other thing too is, if you're used to mixing, scratching, handling the record, you're going to develop a lighter hand, which is just going to be a benefit to you. And then also too, the other thing too is you might rely more on the pitch fader, which again is a good skill to have. So. And possibly you might not do that if you're used to higher torque decks. That's just kind of my 2 cents with it. So as far as the, back cueing, I'll show you that. I'm using control vinyl here as opposed to regular vinyl because I want to keep this original content. All of my videos, they're all mixed videos, so everything gets tagged with copyright. So it'd be nice to have something that has original content. So I'm just going to back cue a little bit with this. So you can see that this and I don't know if you can see it, the strobes are right there. Picked up to speed. So yeah, that's about it really. I have nothing bad to say about these. I've used them for 5 years. The motors have held up. Pitch control is good. They can hold a blend. I've had no issues mixing with them. Tone arms are good. They're just great, especially for the price. Again, like I said, if you can get Technics, of course that's what you're gonna, I would recommend you get Technics. But if not, you're looking at an alternative. If you to spend less money, then I'd say definitely the Audio Technica be something to consider. So if you got any questions or something I didn't ask, just go ahead and post it in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it. Thanks.